Yay, Nick Arson from the Hives. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you very much.
It's all happening for you. You've got a tour, Australian tour starting in Perth tonight. You've got an album coming out on August 29. Before we get to any of that, I wanted to go way back just for a little
Mm.
while.
Yeah,
How did you discover rock and roll? Was it radio, TV, magazines?
discovered rock and roll at home in my house. I had an older kid in my street who had who had music, rock and roll music recorded, and he had AC/DC and Motorhead, and he said, and he just bought the For Those About to Rock record, and I think that came out then maybe in like 82 or 83 or something. So in 83 I was 6 years old. Um, so that's kind of, I mean, my dad was a big music buff as well, and he'd be playing music all the time, like mostly jazz and like sort of Delta blues and stuff, and but also you know on occasion rock and roll. Like mom used to listen to like Bruce Springsteen and Tina Turner and stuff, and there was music around like all the time. But I mean, AC/DC was the first band that I got into on my own, and
Yeah.
then I started building drum kits out of pots and pans and all that stuff. But I also got a drum kit pretty early on. So I mean, I think I was only six or something when I started. When I started rock and roll, you know.
Yeah. And when did guitar come into the picture?
A little bit later, I think I was maybe 10 or something, 10 or 11 or something when I started to play the guitar. Well, I mean, I probably played it before that. There's pictures of me playing guitar when I'm probably like 2 years old or something, three. But it's since dad was a guitar player. But I think for some reason I started on drums, and then um, I started playing guitar on my own when I was maybe 10 or 11 or something, being influenced by, you know, sort of guitar shredders like Yngwie Malmsteen and stuff like that. That was my jam at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the guitar came in later. But I remember this kid and we had a band when I was six. We had a band, him and me, and then Pele sang. So Pele was screaming into like a microphone, and I was playing the drums, and this kid had an electric guitar. But we also cut out of like fiberboard. We'd cut out guitars, like obviously not real guitars, but guitars that we. I mean, it was kind of like you either did sort of you played football, or you had a sword fight, or you played rock and roll with fake guitars. It's kind of like you play you act it out. But doing that thing is exactly the same thing that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that I have a real guitar now.
Yeah. So when the band formed, you grew up in a pretty bleak place. It was pretty cold and rough. Was your uplifting music a reaction to that?
Well, I think that I describe it more as slow, kind of. The town. I mean, obviously in winter it's pretty bleak and cold and all that stuff, and the winters are pretty long and they're very dark. So you only have maybe. I mean, the sun sets at about 3 or something, maybe 2 or 3. And when you go to school in the morning it's dark, and when you come home from school it's dark. So you're in school for the whole day when when the sun is up. But I mean, around that, there's skiing and stuff, and you can do that. But for us, like there was like music is. I think that's one of the reasons why music is so popular in Sweden, because you'll be indoors for much of the winter and stuff. In the summer, you'll have summers that are like I don't know. You can have your 30 degrees Celsius here and there, and you can be at the beach and stuff. But the town that we come from is so small that it's only 12,000 people. So it's like if you wanted entertainment more so than being in a hockey team or whatever, or being like if you wanted musical entertainment, you sort of had to create that yourself. So there were all these bands, they were older than us. So I think music was always popular, and it's also it's like it's a steel industry town. So people would work very long shifts and stuff, and they'd be tired, but they'd be into you can listen to music, and you can like you know I think there's a big musical interest in all these factories, like all these people who had bands and stuff. They had money, and their kids would be into music or whatever, and that's sort of where all that came from. I think that there's such a big music scene in our town. It's the music sound in our hometown was bigger than it was supposed to have been. So
Yeah.
there was like there was and there was a record label there that released records and stuff with local bands and stuff, and that's sort of the one that we ended up on later and stuff. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted that sort of entertainment at 15, you had to create it yourself, and then if you're sort of good enough and that sort of local record label took notice, you could be on that label and release your music and tour, you know.
Yeah. So fast forward to July 2025, and you're in Australia.
Yes, that's now, right? I got to think first. Yeah.
You've got
Yes, I'm in Australia.
this great new album, The Hives Forever, Forever the Hives, coming out on August 29. We've heard a single, Legalized Living. I've actually heard the full album, which is great. How much have you rehearsed up to play on this tour?
Not enough, I'd say. Or not, it'll be great. But it's, we played in Finland not too long ago. And we rehearsed for that and stuff. And it's always this thing when you're sort of, since we haven't played now for a while, I think we came home sometime before Christmas or something, I can't remember, but the rest has been sort of making a record. So when you go out and you play all this new stuff, it's always, before you sort of get into it, it's kind of like wearing a new pair of jeans or something. Before you really get into them and you feel comfortable, that's when you sort of always have to think, like, where am I going with this and what's that? And like, so, but having said that, though, this is, Hive standards, and it'll always be good. It'll always be greater than great. Yeah. So we're very much ready for the task at hand. But it's also that thing where I might have to use my brain slightly more than I do when, we're at the end. When you're at the end of a sort of a 1.5-year tour, then everything is sort of set just in your muscle memory, and you can just enjoy it and run around and have fun with it.
Yeah. You've used a few different producers for the last few albums. Who produced this one?
Well, this one was mostly produced then by Pelle Gunnerfeldt and the Hives, and then there's contributions by Mike D from the Beastie Boys. There's contributions by Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, and yeah, I guess that's about it. There's one more guy in there, but it's that's kind of it.
Yeah. The music on the new album is quite relentless. Is that why you included an interlude to give the listener a rest?
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff is, you when we make records, we make albums. So we want, you want your sequence to feel like there's a dynamic to it and stuff. It takes us a long time to do these. Like I did an interview before this, and they asked me why Paint a Picture wasn't on the last record and stuff. And it's because it sits better with this record. Like sometimes the songs fit in a certain record. So that's the reason. But yeah, all of that stuff, there's like an intro, and then there's all these songs, and then you got that interlude to sort of, but that's something we always used to do. Like there's like on Black and White album, you have a stroll through Hive Manor corridors, which is like an organ piece. And so there's, we always kind of, I know that some fans sort of describe those as, yeah, that's the one you want to skip. When you're listening to the record, that's the one you want to skip. But for us, that's part of, like a palette cleanser or something.
Yeah. You mentioned Paint a Picture. With its tempo changes, reminds me of The Clash. Were they an influence on the band at all?
Yeah. I mean, The Clash are an amazing band, so they've obviously been an influence. I mean, it's like, for me, maybe they weren't, the band that I listened the most to, or but I listened a whole lot to the London Calling record, and I think it was probably one of my favorite records for a time. And they're such a great band too. That like all the making that record, making some sort of cross between sort of, I don't know, 50s rock and roll, punk, and reggae, and doing it that well is a feat on its own. Like, how do you, like, that's amazing. That's an amazing record. They also have other amazing records, but yeah, I think that's probably my favorite out of the Clash catalog.
Yeah, one of my favorite tracks on the new album is Path of Most Resistance. Has a lot going on sonically. What gear is being used to create the sounds on that track?
Oh, shit. I don't think I remember that at all. Like when we record records, I don't remember any of the stuff that we used. Pelle will remember in his head,
Yeah.
like what guitars were used, what amps were used, like what we ran it through, like what mics were being used. You know, like I'm completely the other way around. Like I barely know what I use live. You know, it's I picked my gear, you know, 20 years ago, and then I ran with it.
Yeah.
But then I couldn't tell you. You know, I'm
Yeah.
glad it sounds great.
There are 11 songs on the album, plus the intro and interlude. Were there many other songs that you were playing around with that didn't make the cut?
Not really. There never really is. I mean, we've had, you know, we have tons of songs, or we've had at certain times or here and there, but it's always like around the time of record, you know, like we usually just try and finish what we have. I think I'd say that's the way that we've done it with both these two records. I think the last two records, and it's usually the way that we go. I mean, usually ideas are scrapped such on a, you know, at such an early stage that they're never really contenders anyway. Like we usually try and, like if there's something that we feel is good, then we will instead, like there's a song on this record, for instance, called "Roll Out the Red Carpet," and that riff, we tried to finish that as a song on the Tyrannosaurus Hives record, which is then in 2004, so 20 years ago. So it's like if we have something that we feel is good, then it can take us 20 years then apparently to finish it, you know.
Yeah. So, how do you generally like to record your guitar parts? Do you go into the desk? Do you mic up amps?
We usually record everything live. Like we start out like that. So we set up a sound and then we record everything together. And then we might swap guitars here and there, or we'll add a guitar, or we'll take out a guitar and add another one if it, you know, if it doesn't fit the bill or something. But we always record the takes live pretty much. And then on this record, it was more, we usually use lots of different guitars, lots of different amps, lots of different, but on this record, I think we more, like the main guitars that we use live is pretty much the ones that we used for the most part, I'd say, you know, 80% at least or something for the recording as well, which is kind of rare for us. Or it's been, that was the way that it was in the beginning because that was the only guitar you used. But then as we, you know, could afford more guitars, we'd buy guitars and we'd have, you know, options as far as recording. But now on this record, I think we're sort of back at sort of playing our main guitars.
Yeah. What is your main guitar at the moment?
It's a Fender Custom Tele.
Okay. Yeah. So when you complete an album, do you all jump in the car and have a listen, or take it home and listen on the home system just to ensure it's...
Now it's mostly on the home system, unless we're on tour. You know, you got to find a rig that you're comfortable with. You know, listening to it. So it's like all the way through the mixes, through the mastering, and through the, you know, finishing of the album is, you know, you got to listen on speakers that you're used to, because if it's a rig where you're, you know, that you're not comfortable with, like either on, you know, on speakers that are too big or speakers that are, you know, too defined, like you'll hear everything anyway. But you know, if you do with, you know, a smaller set of speakers or something, for like, that's the reason I guess people used to, you know, listen to it in the car. Like that's where they feel like they'll listen to the record once it's finished. You know, nowadays a lot of kids, you know, they're listening to it on their phones or headphones and stuff. So you know, you'll pick a rig that you're comfortable with. For me, it's like a home stereo system where I feel like I'm pretty much have all the frequencies that I want to have there. It's like old speakers, you know, it's like 60s speakers, 60s and 70s speakers, just like old stuff that I've been given by people. Like it's my dad, one set of speakers is my dad's old speakers, and he was big into music, but he wasn't really a stereo buff, so I guess there's something regular, like an old pair of Phillips. And then I also have connected to those a pair of Carlson speakers, like Swedish brand, sort of. He was big into mono and stuff, but they were popular in the 60s and stuff, like people would sort of buy them. And then it's just, you know, regular stereo amplifier and then, you know, straight through there. But whatever you're comfortable with, I'd say.
Yeah. You guys hit the stage with a lot of energy. Do you have any warm-up routines that you go through just before you hit the stage?
Yeah. We have pretty defined warm-up routines, all of us. Like they're all different, but you know, you jump around and you try and get some body into your system. Chris is warming up his arms, Pellis, you know, screaming into whatever he might be screaming into, or warming up the voice and all that. It's regular warm-ups, and then right before we go on, we usually stare each other in the eye, and we slap each other around a bit, like just to get some pain into your body, or wake up a little bit, and then yeah, that's kind of it, but it's pretty much always the same.
Yeah. Well, what's the wildest crowd you've ever played to?
I mean, we played to some wild crowds over the years. Like, it's kind of like, when, like I was saying in the last interview, when people ask me, like, what's your favorite show? Like, I have 100 of favorite shows because they've been so great. And we've had those moments where you've had like super wild crowds. Like, that's probably also like 100 times or something. I remember one time, like a festival in Sweden, like just in the Swedish woods, we were playing, and it was around the time sort of any virus was breaking out. And it was, people were way into it, and they were like tearing down all these fences and stuff and screaming, and it's kind of like one of those wild rides. But also places like South America and stuff where you're like hammering on the van and all that stuff, so it's pretty wild out there, which is fun. That's the way I like it.
Yeah. You have a break in August, I think, before the September American tour. Uh, do
Yeah.
you do you use that time to rehearse up more of the new songs?
No, they should be in there by then. I mean, it's yeah. A little bit is actually, now you're saying it, but it's right before that tour we have a little bit of time off. But before that, we're in the rehearsal space, sort of working on the remaining songs. Like, we're gonna be playing new songs on this tour as well, but we're gonna add some more of those and just sort of do some finishing touches on that. I mean, we obviously play them in the studio, but it's always different playing them, live. So yeah, we're going to use a little bit of that time to rehearse, and then a little bit of time to just sort of recharge, have some time off, and then I think before that tour we leave for sort of it's about 5 weeks, that tour. So we're going to start off, doing some, around the release of the record, there's some stuff being planned and stuff. And then we go into the shows. I think the US tour, which is about a month. So it's about a week of stuff before that, and then it's like a month of touring.
Yeah, you've got dates booked throughout till February next year, I think. By
Yeah.
by then you'll almost be due to come back to Australia.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind. We love it here.
Yeah. All right. Well, all the best with the tour and the new album. It's been great to chat, and we'll
Thank you very much.
catch
Yeah,
you
my pleasure.
next time.
Yeah. Take care, man.